Hello again. Today we will be reviewing Super Mario 74. Personally, I like to call it Super Mario 64 The Lost Levels, and I'll tell you why later. So when you start the game, it drops you into a brand new hub world. If you talk to the first Toad you see, he'll tell you that Bowser has stolen all 120 stars and supposedly found the extra 30 that were hidden in a toilet. Yeah, that's really the story. It's a fairly good indicator of the sarcastic sense of humor that is fairly unique to this game. Speaking of humor, this other Toad over here will tell you that the cameraman from the original game was fired and replaced with some other guy who really sucks at his job. But he also tells you that if you hold down the R button and press down C, that the camera will work better. And for the most part, he's right. So right off the bat, you'll notice that the hub world looks fairly generic to say the least. It's just a large stretch of green grass with a river running through it, so it's nothing too special. But it's really no big deal at all. I mean, at least it doesn't look unfinished or anything like that. But unfortunately, it seems like the actual levels themselves seem to have a similar issue. Well, at least the first few. For example, this one that I'm in right now just seems to be a few loosely connected structures, all with similar and almost monochromatic textures. With this other level, there doesn't really seem to be any sort of overall theme. It's just a bright grassy area with a few buildings around. Also, for a Mario 64 hack, everything seems so compressed and small. In Mario Star Road, many of the levels were very wide open and there was so much to them, but here, it just doesn't feel that way. But the thing about this game is that it was made largely with the intention of being way more difficult than the original. Now that's why I call it Mario 64 The Lost Levels, because just like Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, the game plays the same, but with much greater difficulty. But you may be thinking to yourself, hey, this looks easy. You just suck at Mario 64, you pussy. And you know, you're only somewhat right. The first few levels are fairly easy. But believe me, it really picks up. Possibly the earliest example of this is the first Bowser fight. Like in Super Mario 64, you have to swing him around by his tail and throw him into a bomb. But where are the bombs? You gotta be kidding me. They're suspended in the goddamn air. Well, that's just great. You can't even see them while you're swinging Bowser around. The camera won't let you. But of course, with some patience and a lot of luck, you will eventually get him. So after you beat Bowser, you get to explore more of the hub world, and I gotta say, this part of it is actually a big improvement over the first part, because there's actually stuff to do. There are a few secret stars you can find here, and I really like that. You know, that's one of the things I always enjoyed about the original, was that there was always stuff to find outside of the actual levels. Now that's a good sign right there. I'm having fun dicking around in the hub world, and I haven't even tried any of the new levels yet. Let's check out this one. Well, honestly, this level seems a little generic to me. The theme here seems to be a bright day in a largely grassy area, not unlike the earlier level that I showed you. But at least there's a big windmill this time. And I know I sound a little sarcastic, but really, that does actually help the scenery a bit.
Here we go!
In this other level, we appear to have much of the same. A generic grassy area on a bright day. But at least this one seems to have more of a specific theme. There are houses all over the place, so I guess it's some kind of village. Then you have this haunted level, which I have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, it's nice to get a change in scenery after 2 levels with the same bright sunny atmosphere, but at the same time, the textures are all like the same colors and it just hurts my eyes. This level is also home to some really tricky wall jump sequences. This might be a good time to mention that when I say this game is supposed to be a lot harder than Super Mario 64, I mean that it relies heavily on things like wall jumping. So if you suck at wall jumping, you'd better get good. But aside from wall jumping, there are some things that the game expects from you where you just have to throw up your hands and say, okay buddy, slow down. For example, this fire level expects you to jump across these extremely narrow platforms, which all have those assholes that throw you off. Then there's levels like this that have extremely tiny platforms surrounded by ice that's so cold that it can kill you. Another thing that pisses me off is when you're trying to find all the red coins, but every part of the level looks the same, which forces you to run in circles. So here's what you do. You go to Options, Configure Graphics Plugin, Advanced Settings, check Wireframe Rendering, and there you go. You can see the whole level. If you look around enough, you'll eventually see some blinking red thing, which is of course the red coin. And yes, this is technically cheating, but you know what? My patience is limited. But on the bright side, remember how I mentioned a fire level and a snow level? I just have to point out that it's really good to start seeing the variety pick up. There's also a desert level too. Great! This is starting to feel more like Super Mario 64. Unfortunately, there's also a stupid water level. This level was actually available at the beginning of the game, but I ignored it because I despise water levels. Another stupid level is the beach level. Why is it stupid? Well, here's the deal. You know how every level gives you a star for getting 100 coins? Well, this level has exactly 100 coins. No more and no less. So that means if you lose 1 coin somehow, you're screwed. Now the worst part of it is that some of these coins are held by these things called bullies. In order to kill them, you need to somehow get them to fall into lava. Now there is lava in this level, but it's just a really small patch on one end of the beach. So you have to kick them all the way over there to kill them and get the coin. But if they fall into the water, you can't get the coin, and you have to start the level again. Now, I'm not against difficulty in video games, but when it goes from being difficult to just being completely asinine, that's where I draw the line. Well, maybe it's not completely asinine. I think it's just the sheer monotony that gets me more than anything. While we're back on the topic of asinine difficulty, remember the first Bowser fight, which was stupidly difficult because the bombs were so far up in the air? Well, how about the second Bowser fight? Well, to my surprise, it was actually way too easy. It's just the second fight from the original game, except fire shoots out of nowhere. Pretty underwhelming. Well, after you beat Bowser for the second time, you unlock more of the hub world, and I gotta say, this is a lot more interesting. After nothing but grass and some generic structures, we come across a giant temple surrounded by lava. Go big or go home, as they say. This hub world, of course, allows access to a bunch of new levels, one of which is a swamp level. For the most part, it's an okay level, except for one major problem. Koopa the Quick. Now you may be wondering, is he too hard or is he too easy? Well, get this. He's fucking broken. When you race him, he starts running through the water and eventually he starts just wandering aimlessly in one direction while gradually slowing down. I've tried waiting it out, but he simply never seems to make it, which means you can't get the star, which is pretty shitty. Then you got yet another level that's suspended in the sky, complete with another tricky wall jump sequence. Eventually though, you'll get to a point in the game where if you're not one of the best Super Mario 64 players, and I do mean the best, you're in for an extremely hard time. And nowhere is this more evident than in the last 2 levels. Ordinarily, I just practice and get better at the game until I could legitimately play this level, but today I just said screw it, I'm cheating. So I found myself a moon jump code. Normally this isn't something I'd be too proud of, but now I don't feel the least bit bad about it. This level was intended for those crazy speedrunners, but I'm doing things my way this time. I wonder what's in here. Mysterious object 2 of 5 found. Is that the rare logo? Wow, that's awesome. The rare logo is an Easter egg in Super Mario 74. Well, that's another cool thing about this game. It's got Easter eggs. See if you can find them all. Well, anyways, I've spent a lot of time talking about the gameplay and the levels. Let's talk about the graphics for a bit. Now, if you haven't noticed, the game appears to borrow most, if not all, of its textures from the original Super Mario 64, which is to be expected. But since the original game's textures aren't that impressive, my opinion on the textures in this game is largely the same. Also, I found levels where certain textures are just used literally everywhere. Probably the best examples of this are the haunted level I mentioned earlier, and that level near the beginning that just has that checkerboard pattern all over the place. The repetitive patterns can get really annoying, and if you play too long, your head might actually start hurting. Well, at least mine does. Then there are some levels that are just not appealing to look at, like that water level I mentioned earlier. Everything is just in these bland and boring shades of gray. But hey, as long as there aren't 50 shades, I'm good. As far as graphics are concerned, there's really not much else to say, but you may be wondering how the game fares in the music department. Well, most of the game just uses music from the original game, but there are a few levels that don't. For example, the second last level uses music from Zelda Majora's Mask. I gotta admit, that's a pretty good choice for a song, and it's a pretty good rendition too. It's not the only time you'll hear Zelda music either. Listen to this. Whoever decided on this music had really good taste. Speaking of which, the Overworld theme is taken from Super Paper Mario. Have a listen. Okay, now I'm just nitpicking, but of all the Paper Mario games they could have taken music from, why did they choose Super Paper Mario? Why not the original or the Thousand Year Door? Well, at least they didn't use Sticker Star. Which reminds me, I got a thing or two to say to Paper Mario Color Splash, but that's for another video. But that was Super Mario 74. It's a pretty good game with a sporadic and sometimes possibly asinine difficulty, and great music. The game is mostly fun, but it's probably best that you play the original first, just so you have a handle for it going in. Not that it's a very complicated game, mind you. Also, if you enjoyed this review, then feel free to stick around and check out some of my other reviews, or just my other videos in general. In case you don't know, my goal is to review as many Super Mario 64 ROM hacks as I can, so if you like those, then stick around. And if you missed my videos on Super Mario Star Road and Super Donkey Kong 64, feel free to check those out too. But until then, this has been another game review by Phantom Bane. Have a good day, everyone.